if you make it to the end of this video and you don't find yourself saying something like, man, it wouldn't be so bad to have hearing loss, or, maybe I would like to have hearing aids, then I failed. And I'm not going to fail today. I'm going to convince you why you would absolutely love to have hearing aids, would love to have hearing loss. I do have them. They are here. It is living proof. So most people would start a video off like this, saying something along the lines of, "Well, we're just going to jump right into why you want to have hearing aids." But I think what I'm going to do is a little different. I'm going to dig us into a 20-foot hole. I'm going to give you every reason why you don't want to have them, and then we're going to try to climb out of that hole. If I can do that successfully, then I won. So this is going to be like 28-3. This is the resurrection. This is 1776. All right, it's a pretty big deal. So I want to begin telling a story. And this is something that's deeply disturbed me for a long time. When I was 17 years old, I went to this gym. It was an athletic club, and they had locker rooms with saunas, a steam room, hot tub, and a cool dip, right? Really nice place. You could play basketball, lift weights, and all that stuff. Well, when I use those different rooms, I take my hearing aids off and I put them in my locker because I don't want them to get wet because they'll short out, and that's not good for anyone. But I was standing there, I'd finished a sauna session, and I went back to my locker. So I'm standing there, and my hearing aids are still in the locker. I throw my towel over my shoulder, and it's on the bench behind me. And I don't know, but for whatever reason, maybe I heard the guy, or I just had that fifth sense. But I intuitively looked behind me, and there was a guy. The black guy was standing there, and he looked really angry. And I didn't understand why. So I put my hearing aids on, and I said to him, "Hey, what's going on?" He was a worker collecting the towels, and he asked if he could take my towel. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Take my towel. And he said to me, "I didn't know you have hearing aids. I thought you were being racist. I thought you were ignoring me." And this is the part that kind of gets me. He said, "I was about to come over there and beat the shit out of you." And that's something that I've sat on for a long time. And that's a real consequence. That's a real scary thing to realize, that there can be actually, there could be physical consequences to having hearing aids. And that's more on the extreme end. But yeah, there are times when you can't hear things that could put your life in danger, especially if you do some of the things I do. I like to be outside, I like to explore. And yeah, you do need to hear. So 13 years before that, I would put hearing aids on for the first time. I was a 4-year-old kid, and it's a weird experience. I didn't realize water had sound. Intuitively, I knew because I kind of hear water rushing out of the faucet, but I didn't realize that the waves lapping on the shore made noise. I didn't realize that you could hear when you drank the water. So that was interesting. But, there is one of my first problems. I was oversaturated. It was too much stimulation for me. It was almost as if you took a blind person and exposed them to light for the first time. So I didn't like it. I didn't like wearing hearing aids. I didn't want to put them on, and that was always a bit of a challenge. Now, yeah, I did get used to it, but one thing that has occurred over the years is, I've gotten new pairs of hearing aids, and every time you get a new pair, something unfortunate happens. One, you have to empty the bank account, and insurance doesn't really cover it. Some do, but it's not widely covered, and they cost a lot of money. They cost anywhere between $3,000 to $7,000. But the other thing that happens is, there's this metallic sound when you put on a new pair of hearing aids. It's almost as if everything sounds robotic. Everything sounds like a tin can world. And it takes a couple hours and your brain adjusts to it. But I know that I'm not hearing the world the same way everyone else is. I know that the way I hear the world is much different. You think about the analogy where, when I see the color green, am I actually seeing the same? Am I perceiving the color green the same way my brother is? It's kind of like that, because I've taken my hearing aids out, and I can hear things pure tone if they're loud enough. And it's a much different sound. It's clear, it's crisp. I can pick up on everything. So that kind of leads me into some of the frustrations of wearing hearing aids, right? Well, imagine you're laying down and you're taking a nap, and there's people talking in the background, or the TV's going. You can hear the sound, you can hear the voices, but you can't quite make out what they're saying. And that's a big factor in my life. I can't quite make out what people were saying. And that's been frustrating, because I can hear the noise, I can hear the volume, but I can't distinctly capture what's actually being said. This doesn't happen all the time. This is something that I struggle with more, especially if it's dark, which is another reason you don't want to have them. You know, if it's dark, I can't read lips. So I'm just effectively cut off from communication. And there's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into wearing hearing aids. And they can be very frustrating to maintain. I was in Guatemala a couple times in the last few years, and they'll give out if there's too much sweat, moisture, or water. I mean, if it blocks your ear canal, you just can't hear. And thankfully, hearing aids have come a long way. So the ones that I wear right now, actually, you can dry them out if they short out, but still, you have to deal with a lot of those factors. And battery packages, oh my goodness, those things are. It used to spin a dial, flip a tab, and you would get your battery. They made this new one it's really hard to open. It's actually a big issue for people with hearing aids. People are cutting themselves open because they're so hard to open. I sliced my thumb pretty bad on a hiking trip trying to open them up. There's nothing more convenient than trying to open a pack of batteries and cutting your thumb open, right? And even if you're on like you're 8 miles into a hike and then your hearing aids die, it's not fun. I've gone whole days of school with dead hearing aids because I didn't bring batteries or something weird happened. And they break. They broke in when I was in Guatemala for the first time. So I think I went like a week with a hearing aid in one ear. Most people wouldn't think how significant this is, but if you can only hear out of one ear, it throws everything off. You're going to get lightheaded. You're going to feel out of balance. You're going to feel out of whack. It's actually better to just have no hearing aids on than have one on. It just completely messes with your system. But growing up, I didn't really get made fun of. Like that wasn't a big thing for me. I mean, maybe a few times, mostly along the lines of making fun of me at my expense, and then I didn't hear the joke. This one kid did. He was kind of a bully, but I did lay him out at a football combine when I was a kid in front of his dad, who drafted me. So, you know, I got the edge on that one. But no, not really too much with getting made fun of. But obviously, those frustrations and those difficulties, I've had to give up firefighting and being a police officer because I don't want to put other people's lives in danger. And the list, it goes on and on and on. But I feel like that is enough of a hole to put ourselves in so that we can successfully climb out, see the light of day, and maybe convince you that you actually do want hearing loss. So we'll just start off with one of my favorite things. I sleep great. I have sleep apnea, but other than that, I sleep great because I sleep with my hearing aids off. There's nothing more peaceful than just being able to take your hearing aids off and fall asleep with no sound. And it's great for camping. If there's someone out there, if there's someone that wants to hurt me or kill me, I'll die in peace. If I'm going to die, I don't want to know about it before it happens. I don't want to know about it. I want to die in peace. So, that's great. And then not only that, but I can turn them off in loud environments or when I was a kid, maybe my mom was yelling at me. I could turn them off. Um, so that has always been, it's been nice just to be able to turn them off. I can deal with any situation like that by turning the hearing aids off. But uh, hearing aids have advanced a lot. They've gotten a lot better. When I was a kid, they were moles. They would put this almost like this pudge in your ears, and they would shape the mold, and then you would get a mole in there. And now they're quite small. It's just a dome. But now they're so far advanced that they actually have Bluetooth capabilities, which is just phenomenal. This means that I can hit a button on my phone, mute all the background noise, which means I can't hear anything but what's on my phone. So I can have really easy conversations if I'm in the middle of a crowd, if I'm in New York City, if I'm in a gym, I can just mute everything and I can hear them perfectly fine. So that's always been great. I absolutely love that. I used to, when I was in the fire academy, we had like 4 or 5 hour classes. And, there are days where I just muted the class. I just listen to music, you know. Shouldn't have done it, but I don't regret it. It's amazing. And it's easy, making phone calls with your hearing aids being connected right to the phone. You don't even have to hold the phone up to your ear. You can just have the phone in your hand. So that's convenient. It's like if you're in class, especially in high school, and you're listening to music on your hearing aids, your teachers can't tell you to take your hearing aids off. There's really nothing they can do about it, as long as they don't know. So that was always nice. But the social aspect is great too. It's a really good icebreaker. It's a really nice way to soften the tension, especially when you meet someone new. Say something along the lines of, by the way, I have hearing aids. If I don't respond correctly, or if I don't respond to you, I'm not trying to be rude. It's just complete tension breaker. And it works on a lot of different levels. Because people are a little bit nicer to you when they found out you have a disability. Although my loss is 80% in both ears, I'm actually should probably have cochlear implants. I don't because I took a ton of speech therapy and I hung out with a lot of people growing up. So, I'm blessed in that regard. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, yeah. So, my first 4 years, I had to read lips. I couldn't really get by without reading lips. And if I, for some reason was in the dark, there was no way I was going to get around that. So, because I've read lips, I've learned to read body language. And, it's really nice being able to read lips. It's really fortunate. And I'm quite good at it. Back in high school when I was 17. All the guys on the team, we would play this game where we're on the bus. And I'm sure if you're an athlete, everybody's played this game, but you would put headphones on and the person across from you would say something and you'd have to guess. All right. So I'd take my hearing aids off and they would put the headphones on and for whatever reason, they didn't believe me. So they would start to actually lip read. They would say the words without producing any volume. And that was fun. Everybody always freaked out. So being able to read lips actually goes hand in hand with body language is something I've always been able to pick up easily on, and it has helped me understand and see the world differently. I can kind of tell where people are at when they don't know where they're at. So it's a good skill to have. I think everybody should learn how to read lips. I think everybody should learn how to read body language. If you're talking to someone who's deaf, you might think you can't talk to them, but they can read your lips, and if you can read their lips, you can have a semi fluid conversation with someone who's deaf. Or you can just text them. I mean, either way works. One thing I love about the app that I use for my hearing aids is that I have this custom soundboard. So I can make all these different soundboards for different locations. I can switch it out if I'm at a restaurant, if I'm at the gym, and I can customize it so that it's based off location. It'll just automatically change to that sound that I have pre-programmed, preset, which is just it's really convenient. It's great, especially if I'm playing guitar or something. I can switch to the music setting and I can hear the bass a little bit better. I can hear what's going on in the background. I'm still not great at it, but it's something. I'll bite, I'll take it. Uh, do tax write-offs. Okay, I get free money for having a disability. I could, I could go to the DMV and I could get a sticker, a handicap sticker. If I really wanted to, I could park in a handicap location, but legally I'm deaf, right? I mean, it's 80% loss. So maybe it's not as convincing as I thought it was. Maybe this is a little bit harder. This is a bit of a challenge. Maybe you're not going to want to have hearing aids, but I think we're slowly starting to get out of that hole. Oh, here's another thing. You miss out on so much BS. There's so much that I don't have to hear. And I'm a firm believer that most of the things that people say I don't really need to hear anyways. And it's weird, you know, enjoying the fact that you're missing out on information, but to me, I hear people talk and I think to myself, does that really need to be said? So there's a strange amount of peace that comes from the fact that I just don't have to hear it. And if I don't hear it, I can't be blamed for it because it's not my fault. I remember when I was a kid, when I was in second grade, we had this thing called the loop system. There's a loop that would go around my chest. And here, the teacher would have one too, and it was basically just like a phone. I could just hear her right through the speaker, and it was great. And the teachers, they always forgot to turn it off. So oftentimes the kids would get in trouble and I would hear everything that was said out in the hallway or, the drama that the teachers would talk about in the break room. And I would get in trouble because I would repeat it. I always thought it was so funny. But no, genuinely, I love having them. I've often wondered if I had the opportunity to have my hearing restored. I don't think I would take it. I really enjoy the benefits, the fruits, and the challenges. If life is too easy, what's the point? If someone were to hand me $1 billion today, what would I do? What would the challenge be? You have to have some challenge in life. You have to have something to fight. If you don't have something to fight, life gets easy, and it's just a real thing. You hear about people who retire, they go live in paradise, and after a couple of weeks, they don't have meaning, they don't have purpose, and they end up depressed. So you have to have a challenge in your life. You have to have something always working against you. And yeah, those are my reasons why I just absolutely love having hearing aids and why you should envy it. I don't really see it as a disability. For me, it's an advantage. Obviously, you do deal with a lot of BS, but I think the good triumphs. God always brings a greater good over the initial evil. And I believe He has done that with my hearing loss, with my situation as well. So that's going to do it for today. I love talking about it. This was a fun video, and I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see where the next video takes us. We might be fishing, we might be talking. We'll see what happens. But if you made it this far, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.